Well, as you can see from the last recording, I have an appalling upbringing as an Englishman. And one of the interesting characteristics of the nation is that they are very good at criticising themselves. In fact, most of their humour is about that. And especially, of course, ridiculing their betters, the upper class that's ruling over them. So let me, in keeping with that, say that, as you will have seen, I can praise evil men and criticise ones that we think to be noble. For instance, if I take someone that our society in England has taken to be noble historically, Winston Churchill. Wonderful man, got us through the Second World War. Couldn't believe it when his first election after the war voted him out. His party. Poor chap was devastated. Couldn't believe, lack of ingratitude, more strong than traitors' arms, quite vanquished him. I'm surprised. Did Churchill ever recover from it? I don't know. He did become Prime Minister in the next election, but, He was a warmonger. Ridiculed. In earlier times, for being obsessed with war. And being incompetent, of course. The first success he, in quotes, had, war-wise, was not until North Africa. Montgomery. His earlier achievements had been organising Gallipoli and diminishing the British Navy, reducing the size of the fleet in the interwar period. But when it came to warmongering, he was a past master. He and his genocidal friend Bomber Harris, who was put in charge of the policy of day and night bombing of civilian populations of the enemy, didn't rescue Britain from the Germans. The Americans did. Just as the British didn't rescue Australasia. The Americans did. Churchill's actual contribution to victory was getting the cooperation of the American president to persuade his country to come into the war. Neatly achieved at the loss of a few battleships and only some 2,500 personnel at Pearl Harbor, galvanizing the entire country to come to the rescue in Europe. There's a lesson to be learned from this. And it's nothing to do with war or politics or anything else, other than historicity is not history. We don't know what the history is. We only have the historicity, the story that we've written, and we live by it accordingly. And that accordingly is death on a monumental scale, but for the grace of God. Whether it be secular politics, business and economics, finance, religion, even philosophy, all our sciences. It's not what happened to us, but what we have held to be. It continues to drive our way forward. Quite simply, our ears and eyes are shut, and our discernment is left to further horrendous experience. And the saving grace is that it's transitory. Thank you, Dad. What do you mean by this recording then, Marshall? Well, the problem with religion is it follows its historicity, not its history. Now, the nearest we've got to its history, in the case of the Jesus story, is the Gospels. Three of them seem to be a rehash of each other. The fourth is unusual. On the other hand, the fourth is in great keeping with the ancient wisdom and the Gnosticism that it embraced. That religious talk is not literal, but in parallels. Nobody thought that Osiris and Isis and Horus actually lived according to the story. The other mystery cults, other than Christianity, around the Mediterranean, none of them believed in a literal history to their story, which was the same eternal story. Same as the ancient wisdom of Egypt, Persia, same as the current story of all the other mystery cults. Same as Christianity. But Christianity was a menace. It wasn't tolerant of other religions. Well, you can't be part of the city-state then, can you? We have tolerance here. And you have this weird idea that your story is actually a true history. Well, that's nonsense. It's an exact copy of ours. And ours was an exact copy of ancient wisdom. Nothing to do with Jesus. Your Jesus is just another Horus. Got this savage history behind you of the Hebrew people. Or should I say their historicity. Thundering war gods and genocide and so on and so forth. But our actual history is not so good either. Your historicity is unacceptable. That it's in fact a history. Oh, absolute nonsense. The only reason Christianity ascends to the throne is because the rabble believe it. It's a religion for the poor and the outcast and the oppressed. Well, most of our citizens are oppressed. If I want the people on my side, my goodness, I'm going to make this religion the state religion. That's exactly what Constantine did, of course. Good on him. As all the pagans pointed out. Not publicly, of course. The Roman Empire declined from that moment onwards. Well, not helped by the fact Constantine shifted the capital to Constantinople, of course. I mean, It was a recipe for dividing the place in two, wasn't it? If you want to find out the ancient story, find the common thread in the ancient religions to Christianity. And you'll know what's really given birth to the religion, and possibly why it went astray. You may understand why it's gone so far astray. But you get some insight simply by looking at the scripture itself, because, of course, religions don't follow their scripture. They're pragmatic. They redefine and rewrite if necessary, but certainly redefine what the scripture meant, and they add to it. And sometimes what they add completely negates what was there originally. Hence we got the divine right of kings. Absolute nonsense. If only the Emperor Constantine could have thought of that. Mind you, I'm not sure as he ever really grasped the notion that he might not be divine. Clearly had God on his side. The Battle of Milvian Bridge. I think that's how you pronounce it. But even if you're a fundamentalist and really felt the scripture was absolutely right in that sense, but not perhaps a literalist, then you could realize the difference between what's written there and how the religion's happening. And that can make great headway. And you start to work out what perhaps should be written there, or shouldn't be, and who might have tampered it and to what purpose. When you realize the state got hold of this story by the throat, then uncertainty abounds.
You see, you have the Chinese comb, like the sound of one hand clapping. It's not comprehensible. Your mind is suddenly clear. It's an independence that is shattering compared to the assurance you had before. You are free to love your God. Your God. And you realize, who else could I have ever loved but the personification of my own values? And I'm going to trust him to goodness, that he leads me through and clears up my misunderstandings as a child. And what I don't have in understanding, I'm going to try and make up for in love and devotion to him. He's my dad. He's everything to me. Love you, Dad. A picture of my friend with one of his middle daughters, and he was sort of laid back a bit on the sofa during the day, and she went and just laid on him, and you could tell she was just in absolute contentment to be laying on Dad, close to him, the one she loves. Bless her. That's how I wish to be to my heavenly Dad. The rest is rubbish by comparison. Abide with me from morn to eve, for without thee I cannot live. Abide with me when night is night, for without thee I dare not die. I choose my God, and I reveal who I am. As is the shrine, so is the worshipper. And I trust him with all my heart, to shepherd me through, to teach me, to guide me, to bring me to life eternal, into the perfect, complete friendship with him and all the host of heaven, all that love him utterly. Love you, Dad. Thank you, Dad.